the meeting to order. Robin, can you do a roll call, please?
Yes, I can. Member Covey?
Here.
Member Crow?
Here.
Member Foltz?
Here.
Member Paul?
Here.
Member Rockwell?
Here.
Member Morse?
Here.
Member Sperlingwood is absent, and Chair Jacobson.
Here.
All right.
Thank you. And now for the adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I did have one thing about the agenda. So between meetings, we received our Q4 operational report, and I'm not sure if the intention was for us to talk about that during a meeting or ask questions offline. So I didn't know if folks wanted to add that as an agenda item this evening or for a future meeting, but I just want to make sure it didn't get lost in the shuffle since it kind of came out between meetings.
Okay.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, I'll speak to it. We could address it more in detail if there's significant questions like at the workshop. We don't really have a rhythm yet of what we're doing like with those. If that's something from a city commission standpoint, we just provide it to them. So we can talk about, do you all want us to present that? Do you just want it and then have the ability to ask questions? I guess that's something for discussion for the board, and we can accommodate whichever one it is. If we want to have detailed discussion on that, I'd prefer we do it at the workshop, not tonight, just so I make sure we got the right folks here. But if we want to keep that as a normal rhythm, that the workshop after we put that out be the place, or we agenda as an item and have people there, we can do either one.
Can we agenda it for the workshop?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Before we go on, I just had a question. The document we received, is this the replacement to
Yeah.
what we used to get?
Yep. That's the idea. And if we want to change it, it's
Well, that's why I asked the question,
Yes.
because it has, I don't know, different focus than what we had in the past.
Yep. And so that's some of the feedback we can provide. Do we have a motion on the?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Do we have- Okay, any discussion on the adoption of the agenda? No, I have one discussion point. I assume this is the right place, and legal will correct me if I'm wrong. So I feel like, I'm not sure whether I've been remiss in my duties, but so we voted on a motion, it passed with one person against, to present a motion to say to the city commissioners, ask for recommendation to pause the natural gas rebates for a year. I have not done that. I've spoken with Tony and with Eric several times about it, but I don't want to sit on it. Now, I know we all received additional information this week, which I've been asking for to get some more information, but it's not my job to do what I've done, so I apologize. But I know it's a sensitive topic and want to make sure we get it right. So at this point, I'm not sure whether, and the reason I'm bringing this up now is quite what we want to do. Basically, we have some choices. I'm trying to think, should we have this discussion as part of this, or should we, well, let me throw it out. So we can say, hey, you told me what to do, I'll do it. Move that forward. We can discuss it now, or we can discuss at the workshop. I discussed this with Tony. He'd prefer to discuss at the workshop, where there are appropriate staff. If you want to have more discussion, you guys say, hey, you've been given your marching orders, move forward. I'll do that. So this is kind of.
And can I add one, Mr. Chair, can I add one piece of information? So right now, the plan is to have this as an item at the General Policy Committee with the City Commission. It's actually a meeting, if you all aren't familiar, it's a meeting in this room, and it's typically the General Policy Committee, as opposed to a City Commission meeting, is a little more dialogue and discussion oriented. And so I've talked to the mayor about us doing that in that format and doing that probably at the February General Policy meeting. I think it's February 23rd is the date that we would bring that item to the City Commission at that General Policy Committee meeting.
And to add to that, my plan to discuss with Tony today is to talk to the mayor to say, do you want us to just send you something saying this is what we're recommending and here's why? Do you want us to attend the General Policy Committee meeting? But it's up to you guys. I personally kind of favor waiting for the workshop to get some additional information, because I don't think the week or two delay is going to hurt anything. But again, I don't want to overstep my bounds. So you guys, I guess the question is, do we want to include as part of our agenda, do we, where does that get included, or we do make a decision now? So that would be part of the motion, I guess, that was made, is do you want to change that motion?
When you say the mayor, is that the new mayor?
Yes,
The new mayor?
yep. Well, the old one's forgotten me, so.
Well, but there's a question in the sense that the old mayor was the one that originally asked for that action, remember?
Yes,
Well, the entire commission asked for it at a joint UAB City Commission meeting, and one of those commissioners is now the mayor.
but yes, yeah, the answer to your question, yes, the new mayor.
Do we have space for that on our workshop agenda?
Yeah.
If we want to
Yes.
talk about it
Yes.
there,
I
I'm
would
fine.
think the workshop would be much better
Sure.
instead of bringing it up now.
Okay, so you want to amend, so I guess that's, we're not changing anything, so.
Correct.
Okay. So any other discussion on the agenda? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. Now I'd be looking for a motion on the minutes.
Move to approve the minutes from the December 8th UAB meeting.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous. State of the utility.
So I'm going to share a couple of highlights. Probably one of the biggest highlights of the state of the utility are some of the challenges we've had with our billing system, which backs up the challenges we've had with labor shortages and meter readers. I'm not going to get into that right now because we are going to actually discuss that as one of our agenda items. But I just want you all to know it is the single biggest challenge we have at the utility right now. It's not a good thing at all. It's not acceptable that that's where we are and the challenges that we have. But we are doing everything that we could possibly do right now to resolve that. And again, we're going to talk about that a lot more, so I'll pause on that. Just a couple of highlights from a safety training standpoint. We've installed at our combined cycle unit at our John R. Kelly station, we've installed a simulator, which is a training tool for operators. Very important piece of computer system software and a whole system to really train our operators to operate the system. We also, rules have changed with the commercial driver's license. The amount of training that people need to have, and we have a lot of CDL drivers at the utility. The amount of training that's required has increased pretty drastically. And so what our safety and training folks have done is put together, and this is across the city, put together several internal trainers so that we can train our folks here at locally and actually save a tremendous amount of money doing it, both from a travel standpoint and from a training cost standpoint. So that's now in place, and we have those people identified across the city that will provide that training for our CDL drivers. From an energy supply standpoint, we completed, I've given little updates on this, but we've completed a lifetime assessment at our DH1 facility. And basically that facility is 50 years old. A lot of facilities are only designed to be 30 years and 35 years. So this one is quite along in age. But we did a lifetime assessment to see if we could even extend the life of it further. And at this point, almost all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, but at this point, there's no major challenges, so it looks like we're going to be extend the length of that another 5 years. But everybody keeps talking about it as this is the last 5 years that this can be extended. But it is good news that we can extend it. The bad news about a unit like that, the good news is you can have this unit run longer and all that. The bad news is it's not very efficient. So as they get older, they become less and less efficient. But that is good news that we're able to extend it. A couple of things in December. So you all know we experienced some pretty cold weather in December. And so I just really want to recognize the reality that whether it's Christmas Day and whether it's 20 degrees outside, we have a lot of staff at GRU that are making sure we're continuing to get power, continuing to get water and wastewater, and those cold temperatures cause additional problems. So we actually have a lot more folks out responding to challenges in the water system. Pretty much any piece of the water system that comes above ground is really susceptible to freezing, and it causes breaks and leaks and things like that. And so we have crews out addressing that. Cold weather with wires and trees and things falling things kind of increase there. And so our folks are out there, we're out there doing that, responding to that all during that time. I think it's important to not lose sight of that reality of the core service that we provide as a utility and what it really takes to do that, and especially the people that it takes to do that. So I just want to point that out. And then the last couple things are people have asked this question. So there's lights. We have rental lights as a utility that we operate, and we charge a fee to individuals that need those lights. We also have street lights that are part of that program. We have a number of street lights around the downtown area that lately have been out, and there's questions about that. And I just want to explain what happened was those were lights that were owned and operated by Public Works. So Public Works years ago decided they were going to own and operate some lights and not do rental lights from GRU. They decided to switch that decision, and they asked us to take over those lights. And so October 1st, we took over most of the lights in the downtown area. When we took them over, we didn't realize a lot of them had some challenges. They were out. Some of them weren't even really connected to electricity. So we've been spending time trying to get those back up to speed. And most of those are now eliminated and they're operational, but there are still a few that we're identifying and addressing. And so if anybody is in your ear and asking about that, we're aware of that. That was part of that transition between the two entities. That was a little bit clunky, but I think it's mostly resolved at this point. So again, those are kind of the big things besides the billing and meter reader challenges that we have that we're going to get an update on as part of the meeting tonight, an agenda item. Yes, sir.
I don't know if this is the right place to bring it up, but I was out of town, but I was reading the Gainesville, whatever it is, Sun. And there were like an article on it about Alachua County versus GRU about I guess fiber optics or
Yes.
Could you
Sure.
please bring us up to date on that?
Yeah, so I'll bring you up to date, and there'll be something more to come here in the next month or so that will be an agenda item that I'll bring up as well. So we have, what you're probably referencing is, we operate a trunked radio system. It is for public safety radio, so it's the system that all police and fire and everybody, when they hit their radios, it's the thing that makes all that connectivity and make the radios work. GroupCom within GRU owns and operates that system. The county has expressed and the people that are connected to that system are like the city of Gainesville, Alachua County, but then also like the surrounding cities, the University of Florida, basically all these different entities that use radio, public safety radios. So the county has expressed the desire to expand that system. And as part of that, in the past, that's been something that then all the parties would kind of come together and decide, okay, do we want to expand the system? What does that look like? As the discussion of expansion has continued, the idea would be that the county wants to own and operate the system. And that is actually the more typical model, is you have a county that owns that public radio system. And so GRU, actually a letter from the mayor that the mayor sent to the county earlier last year, basically expressed the desire that we're interested in selling the system to them and them beginning to operate, but we have debt associated with that system and we have expenses that we need to have covered as part of that sale. So what the county commission passed in December was the desire for us to work together to figure that potential sale out, but they want that answer very quickly. So they put a deadline of February 14th. So in good faith, we're working with them, and I believe there's actually a meeting in the morning tomorrow to continue discussions along those lines. And then that's, like I said, that will be an update that I will bring here if that begins or continues to move in the direction of a potential sale of that trunk radio system to them.
Who's the manufacturer of that? Is that GE or Motorola?
Motorola. So Motorola is the radios that we use. You might be getting above my level of expertise on all the equipment. I think all the equipment is Motorola as well, so yeah.
Okay.
John, was that your only question, or did you have something else you raised your hand on earlier?
No, no.
Okay. Anyone else?
Oh, yes, there was another one that I was going back to the
The service I
the
provide.
decision on extending the life of a power plant.
Right, right.
And you mentioned that at this stage, you look at it as an economic issue and an efficiency issue. At what point does it become a maintainability or a reliability issue? You can't find parts, it becomes a real
Right.
issue.
So that is an issue even now. So yeah, Mr. Chair, like in terms of parts and things that we have, we do face challenges already in that. And so that is really why the idea of extending it beyond this 5 years is just off the table. Because you do start to get to the point of you literally can't find a piece or a part or electronics to work with things. But I don't know any of those specifics at the Deer Haven 1 site, but those do come up, and that is part of the reasoning of why this is the last extension. And so we have to be working now, and that's what the IRP is part of that, is so what's going to replace that power?
That was in the last IRP.
Yeah, correct.
In a nutshell, what are you doing to get this magic 5 years?
We just did an outage, and so there were different pieces and parts that we replaced or worked on to continue it on. The main part of the outage is really looking at the equipment in detail to make sure that there's not any major fractures or issues that are not fixable. But they take everything apart and look at each and every piece and do that assessment and replace some of those pieces as part of the outage that we just finished at Deer Haven 1.
All right, anything else? This topic? All right, let's move on then. The GRU proposed UAB fiscal year 24 budget calendar.
So I'm going to ask Mark Benton to come up. Mark is going to, we've laid out a budget calendar that includes both the UAB and the city commission. And so Mark's just going to kind of step through what that calendar looks like for UAB, which is similar to, I think, in the past, but we can touch on that.
It is similar. We've got 5 different sessions that are scheduled from February through May. They cover a range of topics which are designed to give the board a foundation in terms of understanding GRU's budget, so that you're able to develop a recommendation to the city commission regarding that budget. The 6th session toward the end of May is for you to deliberate and put that recommendation together.
Mark, I actually have the dates up there if you want to just flip through.
There you go. So on end of February 28th, we're going to talk about debt and cash, liquidity, and reserves. In March, we're going to discuss the rate tier structure. This is new. We haven't used specifically spoken to that in the past, but we thought it was time to take an overview of what the tiering structure looked like. In April, rates will come forward with their customer sales and revenue forecast. And on May 11th, we'll actually get into the meat of the O&M and capital budget that we're proposing for 24. And on May 23rd, talk about a variety of topics. Eric will speak to the fuels budget. We'll talk about how we work the fuel adjustment and levelization process. I see the general manager's eyebrows going up at that. He's looking forward to that discussion. And we'll also discuss connection charges and lighting rates. And then on 25th, that's set aside for you all to deliberate about what you've heard. Ask us any questions if you have anything that you want us to review or cover once again, and hopefully provide a recommendation to the city commission, whom I believe the city commission's the day that they're going to vote on, the day we're proposing they're going to vote on the budget is May 31st. So you'll get that recommendation in a week ahead of time for them to consider.
Is there any ability to change any of these dates, or this kind of?
Oh, sure. This is the UAB's discussion. This is your opportunity ask us questions. If you have a topic that you'd like to add, you can do that. If you've got one that you're sick of seeing that we've talked about before, we're happy to delete that. But yeah, this is, like I said, it's designed to provide the board with the information you feel you need to develop a recommendation to provide to the commission on the 24 budget.
So are these going to be forwarded into our regular meeting agendas, or are these special /
I'm going to
additional
defer to
meetings?
Robin.
Yes, what I did was, for most of the dates, I picked your workshop dates, because obviously I already have you all together. And there were a couple that I couldn't make that work, so, because May we have 3 meetings. So there are 2 that are your regular dates, so,
But
your
if you,
regular meeting dates.
if you do, Mr. Chair, if there is a topic that you're aware of that you would like to discuss that you don't see up there, I would encourage or request that you get that to us as soon as possible. These are, most of these sessions are designed to go, between 1.5 and 2 hours. So there's a good bit of work that goes in putting something together to present to you. So if there's anything that you want to see that's not on this list, please let me know.
I mean, personally, unfortunately, I'm going to be gone February 28th. I don't know if there's any, that's kind of the kickoff one. I hate to miss that one. I can watch the tape if there's an ability to move that to the.
What I can do, if you all prefer, is I can go, when I get back to the office, I can pick some alternative dates and send out a poll for you all to tell me whether you're available or not, and then we can bring back another calendar to you.
Okay. Because I know that one's going to be coming up fairly soon, so I don't want to, like we were to move that one up to the next meeting date, not the workshop. I'm not sure if that would be too quick for you guys, because the meeting date would be February 9th.
We went through this last year.
So would February 9th be too early for the debt overview meeting?
The presentation will be done by February 9th. Traditionally, what we have done with these presentations is we put them together, we've scheduled one-on-ones with the city commissioners and covered them before we brought them to both boards. If you wanted it on February 9th, it would be a push, but we could get it done.
All right, yeah, so if you can do it.
I guess we could also go to the March regular meeting too, right? We can push it. Robin, I'm kind of looking at you. So the February 28th, the March regular meeting would probably be the first week in March or second week in March.
Yes, I think the best thing to do, since it sounds like there's some conflict for at least some of you, is to let me go back and just choose some alternative dates, and I will send out a doodle poll that you can then fill out and let me know when you're available, and I'll get that out quickly, and I can bring that back to the workshop for you guys to see, so we can get it pinned down.
Okay, that'd be great, thank you. Anything else on this topic? And as Mark says, if you guys think of any other topics, particularly, I don't have this pretty standard stuff, but think of anything particular you want to hear.
So let me just ask Robin, so the recommendation was for the board to approve the dates. Are we going to do that electronically? Are we going to do that at the next meeting?
Well, because it's on the agenda and that is our recommendation, what you would need to do is vote on it and everybody vote it down if you don't want to approve it as is. And then someone could make the alternative motion to have me bring back additional dates for you. So,
Alternatively, we could, the world unfortunately doesn't always
or just
revolve around me.
defer it. You can defer the item
I
as
hate
well.
that. But we could, I don't know if you guys have your calendars, we could see if we just resolve everything right now.
I should be available through May, any date. Any of the set dates, so.
Would you guys be okay with moving, because I don't want to rush these guys, move it, the initial one to the May meeting, I'm sorry, the March 9th meeting instead of the 28th workshop?
That would work, right?
Yeah.
Anyone have any other, is everyone okay with deciding right now?
That's okay with me, so.
to make a motion?
So move.
So we have a motion to accept the proposed dates, except for shifting the first one to the March 9th workshop. We have a second?
A second.
Gotta be quick. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Opposed, nay? Passed unanimous. Thank you. All right. Move right along.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, just want to make sure that I got it. We're switching that first date to March or February 9th? March 9th or February?
March 9th.
March 9th, thank you.
Yeah, that way we're not rushing. All right, so an update on the winter energy usage billing and staffing.
So, as I kind of opened up and discussed earlier, going back to really almost even the beginning of the year, and kind of coming out of COVID and coming out of the Great Resignation, we've had a significant challenge with meter readers that has led to a number of other challenges downstream with billing. In addition to that, this time of year is a time when energy use goes up because it's cold. So the city commission had asked us to come with a presentation to talk about those two topics. So tonight, we're going to have a number of people. We're going to start with Eric Walters, who is our Chief Sustainability Officer, kind of talking about what do we do as a utility to try to keep costs down and to try to help, from a customer standpoint, how to keep their bills down during this time of year and really all the time. So we're going to talk about that from a couple different perspectives, from a generation perspective and how we make decisions on generating units we use, to how we direct help with customers, to how we communicate and talk with those customers. And then we're going to roll from that into really some of the challenges directly associated with the meter readers and the billing. So I'm gonna stop talking and turn it over to Eric, and he'll kind of run it down to each person from there as we go through that topic.
All right, Chair, thank you, Tony. Chair members, today we're going to talk about winter energy use and really what's going into energy cost. And there's a coordinated approach to that, right? It's not just one thing that you do. It starts with generation planning, and it also rolls into customer assistance, as well as public education and communication with customers. And you see those three dots on the side of that, right? When you look at those, there's really a department behind almost every one of those, right? So there's a lot of folks that focus on this, that play a part in looking at energy costs, managing it, and keeping it as low as possible. So I'm going to start walking through at least that first bullet or first circle of generation. But first, let's take a look at kind of the usage patterns of our customers. What you see before you right now is a chart that shows the average residential energy use per month broken down. Now you'll notice there's variability throughout the year, but we've kind of highlighted the month of January because it's a mini peak per se. It's a pseudo peak, right? It's not as high as the absolute peaks that we see in the summertime. But you do see a lot more variability in weather. You start to see cold fronts like we're seeing this come through this weekend. And so that variability tends to lead to higher energy use in January. So this is just a synopsis of kind of the average use for a residential customer as far as their home goes.
Eric, before you leave this slide, just to be clear,
Sure.
Are you eliminating the gas customers? So if you said, what's the average electricity use? So if I'm an all-electric house, which I'm not, then, so if I have a gas furnace at home, so my January use is relatively low. But if you average, if you said for all customers, here are the kilowatt hours, that would make January look lower for an electric customer than they really would be on average.
So the way I understand it is that this is an average of all energy or all residential customers, whether they have some natural gas or all electric or what have you. So you're right, that if you have more natural gas appliances, you would actually bring this number down. If you have all electric, you would tend to be on the higher side. But this is strictly an average of all electric customers.
So
the
for
energy
the all
use for
electric,
that
they would be
month.
significantly higher because the gas ones are
Yeah.
dropped down.
And I'm texting someone to try to confirm what Eric said. I think Eric's right. I think this is all electric customers, so it's electric customers and electric customers that also have gas.
Okay.
And so you're right, if you're electric only, your peak is probably higher.
Higher.
Peak could be well above summer even.
What is that total to in 12 months? Do we know? What's
Excuse me, I didn't hear the
the
question.
12-month total for that, do we know?
The average or the total?
Well, yeah, the total.
I don't know, I can do the math real quick.
Yeah.
Looks like 1,100
1,100?
or 11,000.
I hate math in
Something like
public,
that.
so I'm not even gonna try.
Somewhere between 10 and 11,000.
Yeah.
Not, yeah.
Okay, thank you, just curious.
Okay, sure. Did anyone else have a question, or? Okay. So, moving on to the next slide, we talked about variability in January, and you also tend to see the most variability for fuel and natural gas costs in January as well. But it's not just isolated to there. This chart shows the Henry Hub natural gas spot price, basically from 1998 through today, or a few months ago actually. And you can see the variability that happens within that fuel cost. When you look at the cost of generating energy, obviously fuel is a huge portion of that. And so the idea is making sure that we can try and forecast as best we can to mitigate that risk and also lower that cost to the customer as far as fuel impact goes. So part of the strategy there is having a hedging plan and a hedging strategy that we've implemented. And we recently updated it in the past year or so to look out further and take a more programmatic approach to it. Before it was more opportunistic and saying, yeah, I think this is a good time. Now there's really some boundaries on how much you need to have in place as a month comes up to the present. And so what that does is that creates more certainty for the utility. It creates more certainty for the customer as far as what they're going to pay for the natural gas and energy cost. And we've actually seen some pretty good yields from that activity. Over the past year, we've saved roughly $5.2 million in fuel costs through the hedging, above what we would have paid, or below what we would have paid had we not done any hedging at all. And so there is a dividend to that, and that does help keep customer costs low as far as energy goes. So another portion, I'm sorry, I'm hearing echoes.
Pretty good.
Okay, so another portion of that is the generating efficiency, the generator efficiency, and also fuel diversity. You know, we look at our system and we do have the benefit of having biomass. And over the past year or so, biomass has been the lowest per megawatt hour cost that we've had in our system. And we've maximized that as much as we could. And so that also contributes to keeping costs lower for customers. Those are some of the things that we try to do and look at a periodicity, and I'll get a little bit more into that as we go on as well.
And you may hit, so how much, like, how does the biomass cost compare to the next lowest?
Obviously, it varies with the gas cost, but on average, we've been between $35 and $38 a megawatt for biomass. The next closest has been CC1, and it's ranged anywhere from $50 to $75, depending
So like
on.
half?
Right. In some cases, it's half.
Okay.
Right.
Well, and on this, I know every time I ask this question about forecasting, the answer is, if I knew the answer to that, I wouldn't be here. But
That's the answer.
I'm going to keep asking, because it just seems to me that, you know, I moved here in 2008, and we can see what those prices were doing in 2008. And of course, as a community, we made some pretty big decisions at the time based on what we were thinking those prices were going to do in the future. And we were drastically wrong, right? And so, I mean, until we're right again all these years later. But I'm just wondering, especially given sort of shifts in what is happening globally, you folks know people that know a lot more about this stuff than I do. What are people saying about where these prices are headed longer term?
That's a great question. So Chair members, what we look at every month in our Risk Oversight Committee is just that. It is a forecast of natural gas prices going out in more detail for the next month or two, and going out in some cases 8 to 10 years. And what you've seen is basically a paradigm shift of, if you looked at this 18 months ago, the prices looked like this, and they were roughly in the $2.5 2.75 range in perpetuity. It did not go above $3. Now what you see is kind of an elevated this. So the average is somewhere around $3.50, $4 now, with a slight incline going up into $5 and $6 long term. And so that forecast has shifted up, and it has seen more of an projected increase as far as the rate of increase going out into the future. Now, obviously, again, if we knew exactly what was going to happen, I wouldn't be working here. I had to throw that in. But the idea is that everyone's kind of coalescing around that, right? That the paradigm has shifted. Will we ever see $2.50 gas? Maybe for a short period of time, but the idea is that the floor has been raised. And so long term, the cost of gas will be higher. Not necessarily at the peak you see there in 2022, but incrementally higher than it was in the previous history.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just read a report that said the U.S. has now become the largest exporter of natural gas in the world.
And
It's
that's
expensive here, but it's way too much money.
And that's having a profound impact on our prices, obviously, right?
That's what I was getting at, is that it seems like we're much more now in this sort of competition globally. Our local prices are being much more impacted by that than previously.
Absolutely. When we were in the height of summer, there was a LNG plant, liquefied natural gas exporting port, that basically caught on fire and went out of service. And what we saw was a drop in natural gas prices here domestically, because that demand was automatically taken away. And it was gone for, I think, 90 days or so, 90 to 120 days. And when that demand came back on, you saw the price start to go up incrementally from there. So it's definitely a global supply and demand that we're seeing right now. The prices today are the lowest since they've been since Russia invaded Ukraine, and so that obviously had a huge upset in things. And so where it's going to end out, we have a bunch of people telling us that it should settle down, but again, we'll have to see what happens. We're doing the best we can with the forecast that we have, and hedging as best as possible with that information.
So I just want to dovetail on what Eric is saying too, so that you all understand. We have experts in GRU that are always looking and studying this. We have what Eric referred to as a risk oversight committee, the ROC, and members of that are within GRU, but they're also experts in the industry. And so we're part of industry groups. We're part of a member of the Energy Authority where there's experts. So we're integrated with those experts that are all watching all of these trends and making recommendations. And then Eric touched on our hedging policy change. And so we're really spending a lot more time of being proactive in our hedging, which really is trying to minimize the impact of volatility of prices and take away some of that risk. But that risk oversight committee every single month has a report on what are we doing? We're looking at the data, and now what are we going to do? And so that is a continuous thing that we will always have in place, where they're recommending hedges or not hedging. They're looking at those prices as we go through operations. What member folks might be thinking about also, which obviously we are, and as part of the IRP, is so what does this mean for making generation choices going forward? And so I think that will be a big part of the IRP as well, as we get into it, of what are our options. And one of the biggest things that we think is really important as we march forward is having bringing on generation incrementally, not necessarily making a big splash and building a 500 megawatt coal plant and then you're stuck with coal, that type of thing, that not doing that kind of action going forward and looking at more incremental additions to our generation and having more diversity in our fuel. So as different fuel prices go up, DHR becomes more attractive, solar becomes more attractive. There are these changes that will hopefully kind of keep our prices more predictable and achievable by those different diversity of fuel sources. So just want to kind of bring that up.
Can you define hedging for us?
You wanna talk about
Sure. So a high-level definition of hedging is basically a transfer of risk. Think about it as buying insurance for your house, right? You're insuring it against a catastrophic loss. You are paying someone else to take your risk of a catastrophic loss of that home, right? If you look at hedging, there's inherent risk in the market due to that volatility. What we're doing is we're buying financial instruments that someone is selling, and they're saying, I'm willing to take on this much risk for this price. And so we go and we'll purchase a hedging instrument. They will take the risk, and that guarantees our price, and it also guarantees our cash flow and caps our exposure in the market. So it's, if you want to look at it, basic definition is transfer of risk. It's insurance per se in a lot of cases, but ultimately the overall savings of that transfer of risk is also translates to a savings to our customers as far as the cost they actually pay at the end of the day.
And so what that ultimately looks like for us is we're gonna buy this amount of natural gas at this price in February. And regardless of what the price is in February, we're covering that risk so that we're not gonna pay. If it goes up to $10, we're still paying the $4.
Well, we know what happened when Texas froze over last winter.
Yep, February of 2021, that was pretty, was it Uri? What is it?
Uri.
Uri, there you go,
Uri,
Uri.
yeah.
So speaking of, a question I get, people get concerned about natural gas availability. Do we see any issues first with meeting just natural gas delivery to natural gas customers? And then I know we've had trouble, GRU buying coal. Is there gonna be enough fuel to meet our energy needs, in this coming year?
So great question. What we've seen, especially in the natural gas market, is there's no immediate concerns as far as supply or the ability to deliver natural gas, either for consumption in homes or combustion to make power. So there are no immediate concerns on the forefront for our area of the country. Now you look at other areas and there's some more constraints that they're dealing with, right? As far as the availability of coal, we actually recently were able to purchase a few trains of coal to build up our reserves, our emergency reserves for that. To say that it's readily available would be a misstatement. It's not. But we do see some things starting to open up a little bit as far as coal goes. Now again, that's an emergency fuel only for us at this point. So we don't expect to be looking in the market long term for coal. So in a way, it doesn't apply once we get all these 3 trains in, unless we have to burn it for some other reason. But we do forecast and we plan for having, up to 2 to 3 weeks a year where natural gas is unavailable. Either it is overly constrained and everyone's using it, and it's usually the extremely hot days or the extremely cold days. And so we plan for 2 to 3 weeks of that in our forecast. And so that's why coal comes into play. We have reserves of diesel and number 6 oil. And so that helps, again, to mitigate the impact of that variability.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. So when we get into generation planning, we have to kind of start with a definition of economic dispatch. And so the definition we have is this: the operation of generation facilities to produce energy at the lowest cost to reliably serve customers, recognizing any operational limits, generation and transmission facilities, and in addition to regulatory requirements. So the takeaway here is there's a lot of things that have to go into that, and there's a box that we have to play in. But when we play in that box of reliability, operational limits, economic dispatch is the most economic way to reliably meet that need. When we look at our philosophy as well, we kind of apply this philosophy over a lot of planning horizons. So every month we have what I'll call a 12-month rolling look, where we look at the next 12 months of what we expect. That's an updated fuel cost. That's an updated look at how much electrical need we may have. And we try to optimize that next month to see if we need to do anything different. Every business day, we look at the next 7 to 10 days and optimize and fine-tune that plan even more based on availability or constraints in the system. And then every hour, we're looking at really the next hour and trying to fine-tune even more. So the takeaway is we're looking over long-time horizons, short-time horizons, and in between to try to optimize and fine-tune our plan to make sure we're delivering the cost as low as possible. So a little bit about seasonal planning, our seasonal patterns, and I won't spend a lot of time on this because you guys have seen this before. But we do have different patterns based on the time of year, and that plays heavily into the amount of electrical load that we need and what we plan for. So let's start from the bottom with the red line is a typical spring day. You're looking at lows in the mid 50s and highs in the low to mid 70s. Fairly flat. You see a little kick at the end of the day there where people are getting home and doing what they do at home, watching TV, cooking dinner, so forth. Going up from there, you see a typical fall day, even flatter than the spring day, but not much movement either way. A lot of people have their windows open. They're enjoying the fresh air because they're coming out of the summer, so not a lot of load there. When you look at the yellow line, you're looking at a typical winter day. Now, keep in mind winter is relative here in Gainesville, right? But assuming we're going into this Saturday, what you'll see is a peak very early in the morning, 7:15 in the morning, right before the sun rises. And as soon as the sun rises, you see that load start to drop off. And then you see another little peak in the afternoon or evening, same thing. People are getting home, doing what they do at the house. And then the green one is the pattern we're in for most of the year, which is a low in the morning and a steady climb and ramp to the evening hours. And we'll do that basically from May until the end of September, beginning of October. The takeaway from this is really the variability. You see the low of the red line is somewhere between 130, 140 megawatts, and the high of the green line is about 430 megawatts. So you have a huge swing there of about 300 megawatts that we have to plan for, and we have to have available generation for, and flexibility for, and a plan for to meet those loads, and also keep that cost low. So someone is looking at this again, every day for the next 7 to 10 days, and then verifying what's happening every hour within the system.
What's our total generation capacity?
I want to say it's the official number. I think is 630 megawatts. Somewhere around there. I have to look. We test it every year, and it changes a little bit maybe every year, but 630 is a good round number.
So when you're hitting that peak, you're turning your ability
Correct.
to decide what, you're just starting to crank everything.
You're turning basically everything on. When you look at reliability, you have to hold some back to be able to recover for the loss of one of those. But for the most part, everything we have on, we're running 4 generating units, and we're running them almost to the top, every one of them in the afternoon in that case. So the good thing in this modern world is that we don't have to do this on the back of a napkin. We have a generation planning tool called GenTrader that takes all of our unit constraints, all of our fuel costs, all of our load, all of our constraints, and basically crunches those numbers on an every hour interval anywhere from 1 hour to 30 years. And so this is the tool we typically use for all of those planning horizons. Our operators on our desk 24/7 have access to run studies in this tool to update those costs as need be if something changes. And the output of that is a fuel expense. It's an option to say, here's the lowest cost, and then we kind of lay reliability on top of that to make sure we're making the best decision possible. Okay. So,
Of course, just assuming that everything's available, right? What kind of assumptions do you make on one or more plants having a problem, and then
well, that's where that fold of, Chair members, that's where that fold of reliability on top of the economics comes in. We don't typically run a Monte Carlo randomized outage function in this tool. We really want to look at the lowest cost, assuming we know what's going to happen. But then we lay that reliability lens on top of it, a filter on top of it, and we say, well, what if we lose this unit? What if we lose the largest generating unit? How will we recover? And then that factors into what we do from there. If we say, if we lose it, we have enough here, or we have enough in reserves that we can quick start, then we kind of go on. If we don't, then we look back at our plan and say, what do we need to do differently? So short answer is we apply it, we look at it through the lens of reliability, and then we make adjustments as necessary. Okay. If there are no other questions for me, I'm going to turn it over to Kenzan, our Chief Customer Officer.
Hey, Eric, I have one question.
Sure.
So going back to your seasonal loads, so NERC just released a report back in December that said that the southeast, 3 of their 4 regions they're expecting to be winter peaking. versus summer peaking. So I think all 4 of them right now are still summer peaking, right? And we know that Texas last year, winter peaked all-time record for us, right? So are we anticipating that? I mean, looking at this graph, I would say, we're not really seeing that, right? But are we, what preparations are we making in case we do hit that all-time peak in the middle of winter?
So that's a great question. Chair members, to talk about the load and the peaks, we've actually seen a couple of years in the past where the winter and the summer were very close. And there was actually one year where there was a peak higher than the actual previous summer. So we have seen that, but it's not the norm in our area for our system. But we are looking at long-term. The generation plants have basically a checklist that they go through to harden their system for extreme cold. So they're putting heat lamps on transmitters and valves that tend to freeze or tend not to operate correctly. And they're looking at, what could potentially be an impact. They're covering things that are exposed so that they don't freeze, or water lines so that they don't freeze. So each plant has a cold weather checklist or hardiness check that they go through every time they anticipate a freeze to come through to make sure that they can weather that. So that's a normal part of our process now. NERC has put a little more requirement on that to dig a little more and show a little more data and verification that you've done that. But that's something that's been a part of our preparation process for a while. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'm Kenzon Hutchinson, Chair and Board, Kenzon Hutchinson, Chief Customer Officer, and as well as adding on to Eric's presentation, where he had 3 bullet points. I'm trying to get that the right. Did I miss a slide?
Keep going.
Yeah, keep going. Okay. I'll talk about the customer assistant part of the winter rates, and so of course we offer customers assistance through knowledge, but also being able to connect our customers with resources. And so when I mean knowledge, we offer energy surveys. And so last year we offered up a little over 100 and some odd energy surveys, 392 surveys. This year we've really got off to a really good start of offering 141 surveys, energy surveys. And what happens with that is we go out to customers' homes and we kind of, we explain about, we take a look at installation, we take a look at window units, HVAC systems, and we look at meters, and we kind of just explain how the customers can actually be more energy efficient in their home. And so that's something that we've been extremely proud of. We offer it for free. And so I think it's a good advantage point for customers if they want to figure out how to be more efficient with their homes. In addition to that, we have different resources online where we have online home energy calculator where customers can go on and without us coming out to their homes, they can actually play with it and see how they can save money in their homes. And one of the things I like about it is a lot of customers, they would have their children play with it because you'll see where children, they'll leave lights on, TVs on, and have no clue. And I've learned that quite a bit once I got older, that it's important to teach us as we're younger so we'll be more efficient. And one, it keeps the light bill down so we can get Christmas presents, right? But in addition to that, we offer LEAP Plus, and I don't know whether you all have heard about LEAP, but LEAP has been a phenomenal tool to really help customers, low-income customers, who may have homes who are not as efficient as others. We've been able to really make an impact in that area. And so we've been able to upgrade homes for HVAC system, add insulation, window seals, whatever the case is, in order to improve their energy efficiency on their home. Last year we performed 135 actual LEAP applications and processes, and so we were able to improve 135 homes. This year our goal is to improve 200 homes, and the way we're kicking off, we have 246 in queue, so we're really making an impact in that area. So currently we had $850,000 to improve homes, but with additional funding that we received from ARPA funds, over 3 years, $1.6 million. We've been able to add $600,000 each year in addition to that, and so we've been able to reach more homes than we did in the past. And so it's been a big deal with those numbers.
And that's fantastic. Now, the 246 in the queue, and you said 200 this year?
Right, that's
So-
our goal is 200.
So does the 46, are they approved basically and they'll just wait for next year?
Right, so that 246 that are in queue, so that's, they've either had the application submitted, waiting on that to come back. Some have been some of those have been started, and then some have actually been completed.
Okay.
And so the 246 is all of those encompassed in that.
So some of those maybe that don't get approved or,
Right, yeah, so those some may not get approved. Those that don't, they don't, but those that do, and we run out of time, we'll end up doing them next year.
so just so you know, we go out, with CWC, talk to people and tell them about LEAP Plus because it's fantastic. So, but then, just that anticipation, would it be, if you apply this year, next, probably would be for next year at this point?
That's correct.
Is that reasonable?
Well, and also, I mean, just in my experience with League Two, I mean, there's a bit of work that's required on the part of the recipient. So, I mean, you have to get your application materials in, you have to be
Right.
responsive to phone calls and emails. Once you get approved, you vet the contractors to come out. So there's also a lot of sort of wiggle room, I feel like, in the program where people that are really proactive and are, on
Right,
top
you-
of it, maybe get a little bit further faster in the program.
Right, so typically when you submit your application, it takes about 6 months to get through the program. And just like you mentioned, if you're more aggressive in calling contractors, getting those contractors out, submitting paperwork back and forth, the faster you can move through the program.
And when you say this year, are you talking fiscal year?
Yes.
Which starts in October?
October 1st, yes.
So really, they need to be, if they want to even get into next year, they should probably be hitting the ground soon.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, and not only do we do energy surveys, but I thought this would be really good just to share that we're big on connecting our customers with resources. And so last year we were able to assist with the ARPA dollars that we received from general government. We were able to actually help customers who were impacted by COVID. Between all of those customers, we gave out $55,000 to assist those customers who were impacted by COVID. And I know that's been kind of a hot topic in the news about, well, people who are outside of the county, they can't get it. And the reason why is because it came from general government, it's city funding, and so it's for city residents. And so you have to live within the city limits to be able to receive those funds. Also, we're constantly exhausting to figure out different resources and funding to be able to help customers who may be struggling or having a hard time paying their utility bills. We sent out a survey for those customers who were past due, who were impacted by COVID. And I want to mention this because I think we have about $185,000 remaining from the $250,000 we received from general government for ARPA. And so we sent out a survey. I think we have like 300 and some odd responses to that. And it may end up being somewhere around about $114,000 that we're able to assist customers with as well. So very, very proud of that, to be able to connect customers with resources. In addition to that, we've worked with outside resources through ERAP, our Florida United Way Catholic Charities. And over the last year, we were able to impact customers in a positive way. And I think it was like 9,000 some odd customers, where we were able to actually give out $4 million, connect customers with $4 million over that last year. And so that's massive when you're looking at a utility and trying to be a resource for our customers and our community. In addition to that, we offer just in traditional ways, we give out payment installment plans. We work with customers if they need any type of extensions or whatever the case is. I oftentimes say this: we're not in the business of disconnecting customers. We're willing to work with customers in any way we can to help them to be able to get through whatever hardships they may run into. All right. Any questions for me? So I'm going to turn it over to David to talk about communication.
Good evening, David Warren, Communications Director at GRU. As Eric talked about earlier, we know that, I never know whether to put these on or We know that usage is going to spike a little bit in the winter, so we always want to get out in front of that and talk about conservation messaging. So we started in November this year with a bill on cert. Bill on cert is it's a message essentially on the back of your bill. The advantage of this is if you get a paper bill or if you get your bill online, you still get the bill on cert. Previously, we did inserts, which is a little piece of paper inserted in the bill. If you got an online bill, you didn't get that. So we hope this is more effective. So we started that in November. It was a message just warning people that winter's coming, usage is likely to go up a little bit, and here are some things you can do to conserve energy. We ran that in December as well. Also in December, we started with radio ads on a number of different stations. We did something a little bit different this year and had our employees read the ads, their energy tips. A couple employees from our customer service department did a really good job. So those will run January and February as well, again, on a number of stations. Our website, gru.com, on our homepage, we have a banner on there that you can click on, and it leads to energy tips on an inside page, which is gru.com/energy savers. We did an email campaign prior to Christmas when it was getting really cold, 57,000 customers. It had a 60% open rate, so that's great. A lot of people got some great tips there. Social media is ongoing throughout the winter. We'll have some social media messaging this weekend prior to it getting cold. And then we always send out press releases to the media when it's going to be cold, and we can provide some tips. Next page. We get our tips from our Energy and Business Services Department. And just to give you a few examples of the information we get out there. Raise your thermostat incrementally to, especially if you have a heat pump, it's going to save you a lot of energy. Keep your thermostat at 68 degrees. Wear heavier clothing. Use more blankets. Just kind of some obvious tips there. And prior to winter and probably through winter, you can just do some simple things around your house. Change your air filter, seal windows. Make sure your fireplace damper is closed when you're not using the fireplace to keep cold air out. And if there are no questions, I'm going to go ahead and... Yeah. Oh.
Just asking. All right, thank you.
We'll go ahead and throw back to Kenzo.
So we're going to transition back to Kenzan to kind of really talk through some of the billing concerns that we addressed earlier. So, I think this is the wrong presentation.
I'm sorry, I thought I said the right one.
It's in the backup correctly
2 seconds.
on the website.
It's the one that we had for the commission last week. My apologies.
While we're looking for that, I do have a question. What happens when that federal money runs out? Does the program become more defunct then?
So the program was the LEAP program, I'm assuming you're referring
Well,
to? So the LEAP program,
You're getting several $1 million out of federal dollars.
right, so the LEAP program we have currently is one that we've had before the funding was available. We just won't be able to assist as many customers each year. So we've been able to do up to 200, but we probably won't be able to do more than that each year. So we do have that program.
Compared to what is the need though? What is the need level? If you can service 200, what is the demand actually?
So, Mr. Chair, the demand is, it's uncertain. It's however many people apply. So we market, I don't have a set number of how many people actually need to have their homes improved. Just whoever applies is who we try to assist.
Although, if I could add, I mean, one of the things that you all have done with the LEAP program, which has been really fantastic, is it used to be much more narrowly defined who could apply for it in terms of income
Right.
requirements. With this influx of money, they've been able to say, well, we have broadened the income limits, correct? And then
Correct.
also broadened it, for the entire time I've known the program, it's only applied to homeowners.
Right.
And
Now
now,
we
for the
do
first
renters.
time, it's applying to renters, which is tremendous. And so, you know, the ARPA money will be running out at some point, but keep in mind too, that the IIJ funds, you know, the sort of second round of really big stimulus was 20 times larger than ARPA. And that, unlike ARPA, which was automatic dollars that were just sent to the communities, we have to go out and sort of aggressively apply and try to get those funds. So we've talked about that at other meetings and things like that. I sincerely am hoping that the city and GRU is out chasing those dollars to continue to do programming like this, kind of as the ARPA dollars ramp down.
And, yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll touch briefly on that broader topic of really grants and funding. You know, a lot of folks have characterized it as this is kind of a once-in-a-generation opportunity with the amount of federal funding that's available for a lot of different things that impact and that can improve the utility industry. So, you know, we aren't staffed, like we don't have a structure set up like for grants and grant writing at the utility. We typically engage in some grants at different levels, but as a mid-sized utility, we typically don't, there's not a lot of grant dollars. But with this reality, the last year or so, we have restructured folks and have some external assistance in helping with looking at grants. And so literally like on a weekly to every month basis, we're looking at deadlines and what's out there and what's available and then applying for them. And some of it's learning as we go because like I said, we haven't been structured to do this, but we are pursuing those things as the member kind of mentioned, the different dollars that are out there that can best serve our community, our customers, and help us as we move kind of forward even toward the net zero resolution and the dollars that are focused on that as well. Just trying to filibuster there a little bit. Kind of ran out of steam.
I've got it pulled up here if you want to.
I know, I do too. It's in the agenda item, Robin?
No, that's the wrong one.
I don't think it is.
Hang on.
All right.
Kenzo can just act it out.
Yeah.
This part.
I mean, honestly, yeah, I mean, if you have the presentation in front of you.
Yeah,
If
you
y'all-
want to get
okay.
started? Yeah.
Yeah, I can get started. And so, Commissioners, just kind of wanted to address, the billing concerns that, of course, some of you may or may not have heard, where customers haven't been receiving their bills. And so to kind of get us to point to how we got to where we are, this past summer, with record heat, extremely high fuel charges, it was absolutely the perfect storm that we had, especially as it relates to being able to maintain, to hire, and also to retain meter readers. The ripple effects for that resulted into longer billing cycles and also a potential to have a higher bill. And so with that, a decision was made to do some mass estimations. Across the board, there's a labor shortage across the board. With the fact of the shortage in meter readers, it really impacted those departments. And so typically what happens when you have a shortage of meter readers, you can't get out to read meters, you do estimations. It's something normal across the industry that happens. And so with that resulted meter locks where bills hadn't been able to go out for customers to be able to pay their bills. And so it's been a really challenging time for us. And so I just kind of wanted to share a little bit how we got there and some of the struggles we're having as it relates to meter readers, some of the problems where we are. And so one of the things that happened with the ability to be able to maintain meter readers, since January 2022, our turnover rate for meter readers has been 145%, which is extremely high for someone who needs to have the ability to be able to read meters. And that's something massive because Meter readers, of course, they go out to read meters, and when the turnover is so high, the experience level becomes low. And I think our average tenure is like 3.9 months, which is pretty low. When you have the inexperienced meter readers, sometimes you run into issues where inaccuracy may happen because they're just not used to it, and we're trying to get them up to that point. But then sometimes the ability to actually read the meters sometimes become challenging. So we face that. And so it's been real challenging to keep meter readers. In addition to that, of course, we're moving towards the AMI project, which is Advanced Metering Infrastructure. We're moving towards that. And so whenever meter readers hear that coming, of course, they feel like, you know what, this is going to be a temporary job. Why should I stay here? And so we face that. And so ultimately, because of that, it resulted in us having to estimate more than what we desired. But also, there was some times where we had inaccurate reading. And when you have that, our system, which I'm sliding over to the billing system, our billing system, it's set up to where when something looks off based on historical data, it halts that bill from going out. It pauses it so we don't overcharge customers. That actual feature is made to protect the customers. Although customers may not think so, it's there to really protect the customers. And I think about if a bill was extremely high and it didn't make sense, it went out and it drafted from a customer's account, we wouldn't want that. And so the system is doing what it's set up to do. And so because of that and the mass amount of estimations and the tenure of our meter readers, the system locked up quite a few bills. And when that happens, the meter locks, GRU has to manually go in and look at every one of those accounts that locks up. And I want to really emphasize on the fact that manual, it's not a one-click fix-all, those type of things, because it's so many different variations of what could happen to have locked a bill, that we have to lay eyes on those bills in order to get those bills out. Unfortunately, because there's been so many bills that have been locked, more than what we're used to and we're staffed for, some customers, in the result of that, hadn't received bills for a month or two, some even 3 months. And so some customers actually, when we get those bills fixed, some customers are receiving 2 and 3 bills at one time, which has been challenging for our community. Our general manager mentioned it. It's unacceptable. It's not something that we like. And we're diverting a lot of resources to it, but it's where we are, and we're trying to come out of that hole that we have because of the backlog.
Just a quick on that, so just to make sure we're on the same page. So basically, if it happened to me, I'd say, oh, I didn't get a January bill or a February bill, and then I'll get 3 bills in March. Now, I know I didn't get a January or February bill. Hopefully, I budgeted, I haven't spent that money, but that doesn't always, is that?
That's correct. That's what we recommend, Mr. Chair. We recommend customers make some type of average payment that month, even if you didn't get your bill.
Just set the money aside.
Right, or you can call in to customer service and we can give you somewhat of an average what you need to pay, and that way you're not stacking up or delaying payments. Also, before I leave this slide, I think it's necessary to know this. So when we say mass estimation, we're talking about some routes within a cycle or billing cycle, which means it's not all of that day that we estimate, but a portion of those meters that we would estimate. And so if we were estimating some bills, we go out, we read a cycle, just whatever we can't get to that day, we'll estimate the rest of those routes. And that's mass estimation. We do, on occasion, if we can't get to a bill or meter, we'll find ourselves estimating because of a lock gate or bad dog, or we can't read something. So there are occasions where we will estimate, but when I'm talking about mass estimations, I'm talking about routes.
So, I mean, hopefully, it sounds like the direction we're heading and that this is kind of behind us, but I do know, like, in our household, this just happened to us the last 2 months where we had been, getting relatively higher bills, as everybody has, and then we had a month that was really low, surprisingly low. And my partner was celebrating, and I said, well, before you celebrate, let me take a look at that bill. And I flipped it over, and in the back there is the little EST, just that little EST. And I said, okay, so brace yourself, because next month is going to be, and it was. It was a crazy bill. And so it just struck me that if this kind of thing happens again, speaking of onserts and that sort of thing, it would be nice to have a little bit more robust of a warning system for people that they know to expect. Okay, this bill is looking good. Next bill is going to hit you hard. So just to kind of get, then people would be a little bit less angry when they get that second
Right.
bill.
And communication is key. We've sent out press releases to try to inform the customers, but it's one of those lessons learned to try to get out in front of it, communicate to customers, and that way they're not expecting that. They'll understand it and not so much in shock when they do get, just like you mentioned, the actual read.
So we did send out emails to customers. About 55,000 of our customers have provided us their email addresses. We did send out emails to customers when we realized the challenge of this, but only to those customers that have them, and to all of them, not just the ones that were going to have a challenge. So, it's less targeted. It would be nice to be more targeted, as you're describing. I think the other piece, and Gonzalo may touch on it, this is an acute problem. This is a problem. The ultimate solution is really AMI, where we're headed, and that this is no longer an issue at all. So long term, we really do have a significant solution we're struggling with right now, and just trying to step through kind of where we are now. But I'll let you kind of keep talking about that.
You're getting ready to move on to solutions, but I was just wondering if one of those solutions might be, since you're having problems hiring meter readers, there might be some extra money left over. You can try to hire more contract temporary people to install the AMI meters to speed up that process.
So I'll speak to some of the solutions on the next slide, and I do not want to forget, but Tony Carroll, he's here, and he's overseeing the AMI project and also meter readers as well. So if any questions that you have that I can't answer, he'll be able to answer those. All right, so from a solutionary standpoint, so we talked about the problem, the perfect storm, how we got there. Just kind of wanted to share with the board some of the solutions that we have. One, as it relates to the meter reading itself, but also with the billing. And so, which is massive here, no more mass estimation since December 5th. And so we've really went out to grab resources, previous meter readers in other departments. We have linemen out reading meters, and so to really help prevent us from going into that phase again of doing mass estimations. And I do want to say key, when we're talking about mass estimation, we're talking about routes, but there are times where, customers may get a bill and you say, well, you say you're not going to estimate anymore. Yes, there are times if there's a lock gate, if we can't get to those meters, we will estimate those meters. And then the following month, hopefully we'll be able to work with the customer to figure out whatever the lock may be, or they have the dog put up, we'll be able to get to the meter read and actually have an actual read, and then the bill will be trued up at that point. We've been working a lot of weekends, holidays. We've been working quite a bit to make sure that we're not estimating bills. Also, of course, we recruited within the utility linemen, whatever the case, to do meter reading. But in addition to that, we've contracted with the contractor, third-party contractor, and they will provide resources for us if we do run into a point where we're losing meter readers. We have, I think it's 6, Tony?
Yes.
We have 6 available resources to us to where if we're short, typically a full staff is 24. And so if we got below that 24 number, we can reach out to our third party and they'll provide a meter reader, and that way we're not dipping in actual count for meter readers. Then the other part that we've done is we've transitioned temporary personnel, temporary meter readers to permanent meter readers, which is a big thing because, of course, when you're temporary personnel, you're always looking for full-time permanent work, and so we were able to offer that to our meter readers to hopefully be able to retain them. That way we have the resources we need. In addition to that, we have been looking at, HR has been working and been looking at our pay structure with meter readers to figure out, based on market, how to really keep our meter readers retained. And the big thing with that is, when AMI is coming, like I mentioned before, meter readers typically say, well, you know what, AMI is coming, they don't have any need for me anymore. And so what the plan is once AMI starts rolling up, and through attrition, of course, some may leave to go to other areas, but hopefully, you know, there'll be somewhat of a preferential or some opportunity for those meter readers to go anywhere in the organization with jobs that may be available during those times. So that's the meter reading part of it. From a billing standpoint, we've shifted every resource we can think of to the billing concern to get bills out. We are backlogged that we're trying to navigate through those, but we've been working a ton of overtime to get bills out. We've been working weekends, of course, holidays to get those bills out. As we've done with meter reading with the contractor, we've contracted with a third party to help us get bills out. And it's a really skilled craft to be able to go in and be able to look at bills. And, you know, I wish we can get bills out tomorrow, all the bills out. But it takes time to really train people to actually look at the bill, see how to put in the meter read, to look at what's needed. And also sometimes it takes us time because we have to send meter readers out to reread or to get another read to make sure that we can bill the customer properly. And so we lay eyes on those bills and those meters because we want to make sure customers aren't being overcharged. And then also what we've done is we put frequently asked questions out on the website because of course, like board member mentioned, communication is key. And so we have frequently asked questions. So if there's questions customers have, they can take a look out on the website and hopefully be able to answer some of the questions or concerns that they may have. Lessons learned, of course, you know, when we run into perfect storms, you always have to look for lessons learned. And so mass estimations, when we did mass estimation, we were looking to really protect our customers and, you know, stop the longer billing cycles because, you know, there was a lot of complaints about the longer billing cycles, but we really wanted to, you know, shorten the bills. And so we've learned that the system safeguards and it lock reads when things seems off. And so with that backlog, we'll have another plan if it ever came to that point again, but hopefully fingers crossed that we'll never run into that again. But we are trying to dig ourselves out of that. From a long-term solution, and it's more prevalent now, the fact that AMI is going to be our long-term solution. If we had AMI in place, we'd be able to actually get reads from the actual meters themselves, even if we did not have meter readers. So we're very fortunate to know that we're heading in the right path to actually have AMI. I'm really excited about that. And then the last thing, lesson learned, is we have to do what we need to make sure that we maintain staffing levels to keep meters read. Addressing customers' billing concerns. And so I think this is important because, you know, there is in fact customers who have not received their bills. There are customers who have received 2 and 3 bills in 1 month. And so my statement is always this: we're not in the business of doing disconnections. We're willing to work with customers. But a couple things that I do want to mention that we will offer is if a customer needed any type of arrangement as it relates to payment arrangements or installments, we do offer those. I do recommend that if a customer did not receive their bill, that they do make a payment. And as I mentioned, you can call in to customer service, and if they need to figure out what to pay, we can do that. In addition to that, there's no late fee. So if a customer received a bill or 3 bills and they were late, it's not a late fee. So a customer will not be disconnected if they did not receive their bill. And then you'll notice up there the 334-3434 for any concern that a customer may have as it relates to their utility bills.
Any questions, comments on this? I just want to say thank you to you guys, to Carol, Kenzon, and your team. But I can empathize with customers saying when this thing, that's a tough situation. It's just a no-win. Sorry to hear that. If it makes you feel any better on your turnover, I don't know if you know, the average retention rate at the Amazon warehouse, 3 weeks. Wow. Can you imagine? 3 weeks. If they stay 2 weeks, they're happy. So it could be worse. That helps out.
Well, it was interesting. One of the things the communication department had put together was the number of other utilities that were facing this exact challenge. it was pretty unbelievable, like looking at a number, kind of all the same quotes that we're saying. Utilities in Alabama and Louisiana and Mississippi, like the labor market is very, very different right now. And it is difficult to recruit, retain. Our vacancy rates are more than double what they typically are. And other industries and other organizations are very similar. And so that is, your employees are who get the job done. It just doesn't happen. And when you don't have them, there are consequences. And hopefully we're going to rebound from those very soon.
Drilling down on that, is the average meter reader on other companies 3.6 months or whatever it is? Or do you have a feel for that?
We don't have, that's a good question. You know, the member was just asking, like, what is the turnover rates at other places,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
their average 10-year? We don't have any of that data. We do know anecdotally in talking to other utilities that they're having trouble,
Okay.
you know,
Okay,
maintaining.
I'm just trying to
Yeah.
get a feel for, about the turnover,
Yep.
so.
Jason, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I have a question for you, Tony. I think you just touched on this a little bit, but one of the biggest takeaways for me for the most recent orientation that I went through was that this is a bigger issue throughout the utility. I talked to department after department that talked about staffing issues.
Oh, yes.
And so I'm just wondering, from your perspective, this is obviously the most in-our-face thing right now, but from your perspective, what is your plan to address that utility-wide?
Yeah, that's really, really good question. So the city of Gainesville, we have an HR, human resources department. So we all work with that human resources department to address this issue. I should bring it up, but I think citywide, I think we're at about a 16% vacancy rate. Within GRU, it's a little over 12. It's between 12 and 13%. GRU, we're typically closer down to around 6 on normal last several years. So literally having twice as many positions vacant causes a real challenge in the organization. I think you have, I'll say just real quick, you came out of the pandemic where there was a lot of turnover, the Great Resignation. But then in addition to that, we had an aging workforce, so natural retirements were happening. And so when you look at our organization now, you can go to a plant or a facility, and where we used to have 20-year, veterans there, we now have a lot of the workforce is under 5 years. And so, what we're looking at, kind of thinking about that going forward, is obviously compensation is part of that. And the labor market compensation has gone up, and so can't give any details, but right now we're negotiating with our CWA union contract of what that may look like in the coming years. So I think that's always a big piece. Frankly, we're having a retreat tomorrow with the new city commissioners and the charter officers, and one of the things the charter officers were sharing is just the importance to focus on, this sounds like the soft part, but it's real organizational culture. And that, again, we have a lot of retirees that have left GRU and in the city of Gainesville because they've been here a long time, and we're bringing in new people, and we have to have a culture that encourages retention of employees and a great place to work. And so, that needs to be a focus. So you got to talk about compensation and benefits and all that. You've got to look at organizational culture and kind of where that's headed. So those are the two big pieces that we're looking at. HR is obviously then focused on recruiting. How do we get out there and get workforce here? So they're working on that aspect. So I would say those are the three big things that as an organization we're focusing on. And we are hiring people when, a lot of times when you think of 12% vacancy, it's not a situation where, okay, well, there's these 50 positions, we just can't fill them. It's oftentimes we're filling them and then someone else is leaving, and then you're filling here and someone else is leaving. So it's not that just you have certain positions that are open, it's just there's a lot of turnover in the labor market right now, and people are able to kind of move around more easily than they have in the past. So yeah, so that's something we're continuing to focus on, and HR is really keen on how do we change things here within our organization to retain those employees and attract them, especially. I know that's not a perfect answer, but and it's not an easy answer, but that's kind of what we're doing.
Anything else on this topic?
Is there any sense as to why the people aren't leaving? You know, the ones that come in and then they turn,
Yeah. So,
getting better jobs, more pay?
yeah, so again, I think Human Resources Department is trying to look at the data a little bit better holistically. For just me kind of looking at the utility, coming out of the pandemic, we had a lot of turnover through that whole, just kind of create the whole environment, everywhere kind of changed to where people, this is my assessment, I think people didn't ever think about leaving their job. And now all of a sudden, other people are leaving and there's all these opportunities. And so you had an employee base that all of a sudden saw that as an option. And you have some things where an employee, we talked before, a line worker leaves and works at another utility and then says, hey guys, this we get paid well over here, come on over. So you kind of had a lot of that happening. We did have some of the retirement thing where, we just, our aging workforce kind of was aging out. So that was definitely a part of it. But I think the bigger part was people kind of opened up and saw other options. I'll tell you, one of the competitive things that we have faced is organizations that allow remote work. So why would I come to work every day when I can stay home and make more money and, those types of things. So compensation, remote work, benefit, all of those things have produced a challenge for us. So I think the answer is a lot of different reasons why, but coming out of the pandemic, probably one of the biggest is just, hey, I've never thought about this before. I can go to other places, and a lot of people chose to do that. But then a lot of people chose to come here too, from other places. So both of those things are happening.
Thank you. So now we can move on to public comment.
Good evening.
Roberta Gastmeyer. I just want to give kudos to the communications department. I recently received one of their emails that talked about this whole issue with the meter readers, but more importantly about the AMI, which was beautifully designed, very comprehensive, and really easy to read. So I thought that was an excellent job, so I really appreciate that. And then, I know you guys love talking about gas rebates, and I understand you might be getting some presentation. Will I be able to address that afterwards, or should I do my piece now?
Before you so we are going to, at the next workshop, get a presentation from GRU.
Okay, so you're not doing it tonight?
Not tonight.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
And Roberta, do you know the date of that? January 24th, it's the workshop. It'll probably be at GRU.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay, yes. So, member comments. Any member comments? Hearing none. Next meeting date, the January 24th workshop, regular meeting February 9th. And with that, we will adjourn. Thank you.